It's funny when you never know when chemistry is going to strike, and we put Carpa together with Sullivan Mack and Kyle Jackson, and it was just instant chemistry. And then when you find that as a coach, you want to continue to go and push that button. And I thought they were fantastic. I know Jacko got the hat trick, and but we were able to match them against their top line, and they just it's really fun watching Carpa develop into this really great 200-foot centerman who can, really play in all situations. And he's just got such an elite hockey brain. And, so that was really good. And then again, to your point, we kept talking about learning from our mistakes, learning from last night and those things. As you go through the ebbs and flows of a season, that's something that you're hoping that your group is going to learn and, learn from. And so I think our guys deserve a ton of credit for that.
Hugo Allos, his first start, I believe, in any league since November 1st. First appearance since, I believe, November 9th. How do you feel like he did coming back?
I thought he was real solid. I thought he looked very calm in the net. He looked confident. He wasn't, his reads were real solid. He wasn't over moving and, over committing to stuff. I was really happy for him. He's such a great person and he's such a great, citizen in our locker room. And I know the guys really like him and they love having him around. And so I was really happy for him and, to see him play with just poise and such confidence, and see the growth in his game. It was really nice to see.
Any adjustments going into Wednesday's game in Kalamazoo?
Yeah, that's just the nature of this game, right? We're going to get Kalian Kovacs back. We got to look at Riku Ishida. We got to look at Johnny Evans. It's the ever-changing hockey league, right? That's what the ECHL stands for. So there will be some adjustments, and again, we'll look at the film, Mess and I, and break down what we thought we did well and what we need to do better. And there's always those little in-game adjustments that we're gonna have to make.
Thank you, Coach.
Welcome.
Overall, December is a very busy month for you guys. How are you going to make sure that everyone can keep up their stamina throughout it? And yourself, too?
I think it's a fantastic question. So I just had our captains in our room and just going over what I thought the next 7 to 10 days are going to look like, and then factor in the travel and the games played and when we're going to practice and when we're going to do our workouts. I think it's important as a coach to have a plan, but within that plan, get buy-in from your players and make sure that they're, comfortable with what, the plan is going forward and allowing them to have a voice. So we were just kind of going through it for the last 4 or 5 minutes, and we feel pretty comfortable with what we've been doing. The other thing is, we've had a hard schedule. We've had a ton of travel even in the month of November and October, middle of October. But it's about just, talking to the players. We also have a great strength and conditioning coach in Bob and Chad, and we talk with them on every Sunday and just go through what we're going to do during the week. And so it's really an organizational, process to go through that and just make sure that you're, you have an idea as a coach, but again, it's so important to get feedback from the people that are experts in what they do, and then include the players on that because they're the ones experiencing it, right? It's one thing as a coach, it's a completely different thing as a player.
So what are some of the kinds of feedback that you've got?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, just the way we're lifting right now, we're very specific in what we're doing with Chad and Bob. A lot of planning goes into that. We, just without going too far down the rabbit hole, we planned out all of October at the beginning of October. We planned out all of November at the beginning of November. And then within that, again, it's constant communication with those people to, I think it's important as a leader to have a plan, but then within that be, flexible within that plan and be able to adjust on the fly as needed. And again, I got a lot of great people surrounding me with, whether that's Jesse Messier or Bob or Chad or, even Dan Larmer. So it's really like a collective group.
Okay.
So just, you were mentioning adjustments, and last night you were very displeased, or you weren't necessarily happy with the second period effort, and then today very much controlling the play for the entire period. Just what kind of adjustments have changed, and really just what changed going into tonight's game?
Again, I think just kind of what I said too earlier, I thought our players, a lot of the chatter on the bench was regarding, what happened last night, and let's make sure we're learning from it. And then what do we need to do in order to learn from it? Well, that means, we got to get pucks in deep. We got to, minimize our turnovers. We got to, get back in the D zone as quickly as possible. We got to make good changes. We got to make smart changes when we have the puck or in the offensive zone. So those were kind of the things that the guys were talking about on the bench.
More for you, Coach. So Just start off the game, like those first 2 goals Nikita set up seemed to be really quarterback, because first off he set up Jackson, making a nice move, and then calling over the play to Datama to get that shot off for Jackson to get the rebound. What does he mean to the team, especially at least tonight within the offensive end?
I mean, I think that's a fantastic question. He means everything to us. Okay, I think he's the best defenseman in the ECHL. We're very fortunate to have him on our team. That's not to take away anything from our defensemen or the defensemen around the league, but I just think he's a very special player, and I'm really excited to see what his future in the game looks like. And he's not only what a great player he is, but he's also like an incredible person off the ice, and again just drives our culture in a professional yet quiet way, because he doesn't wear an A or a C, and we've got some great leaders in our room, but he complements them just with his experience and what he's done in the game.
Thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
I got one final question. Tonight was the second annual Teddy Bear Toss game.
Yeah.
Kyle Jackson gets the goal, and obviously all the Bears and stuffed animals come on the ice. It's probably good to see the city of Bloomington come out and donate, and probably what are you guys' feelings as players to be able, and coaching staff to be able to see that from the fans?
Again, our hockey ops staff and our players are all about us being a community asset and here for the community, and help in any way we can. And our players are phenomenal with that. And, so to see our fans come out with teddy bears, and it's just a cool thing, that happens at our level. And it's something that, you always see it on social media, and it's pretty cool. And then for me, personally, to think back to a year ago, and I can vividly remember that we played Toledo. It got, pretty late into the third period. We hadn't scored a goal. And, it's nice at times to take a step back and see how far we've come in such a short period of time. Whereas here, we get 2 in the first, and it's not, you're not on pins and needles the whole game. So, for me personally, it's also a special thing.